The enduring issue of adolescents congregating in public areas post-school hours, partaking in illicit substances, displaying inappropriate conduct. We've been going over and over this, and joining us via Zoom to share his perspective is the Jamaica Association of Principals of Secondary Schools President Linvan Wright. Morning. Principal, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Boy, Linvan, I don't know. This has been since the beginning of time, though. I'm going to say from Mega School, we have been gathering in places, but I guess what is making it even more of a problem is the numbers are growing, and then what they do when they gather. Is that the issue?
The brazenness, yes. I think the brazenness is what really is shocking many people.
Tell us about the reports you've been receiving. So they're in plazas, smoking weed? What's going on?
Well, those are some of the things that are happening with many of them. I think someone spoke to me from about something happening in Kingston, but it's not a Kingston phenomenon. It's all over Jamaica. The children have a significant amount of time between, say, 3 o'clock and, say, 6 o'clock. I think many of them don't seem not to be under any kind of curfew to come home at specific times. And so they just, just loiter. And in loitering, there are people who, to me, are irresponsible, who sell them alcohol, who sell them weed, who sell them cigarettes, and who have them indulging in all kinds of things. And so I think that's where our challenge is, that we just need to have more people in these spaces, because it cannot all be about teachers and police and principals being there. It's also our public understanding that we have got to give an eye to these young people so that they understand that these spaces are spaces where certain behaviors ought not to be conducted.
Yeah, but
yeah. I was, because I'm listening and I'm saying, some parents will say, "Sir, I'm me one, and I'm at work, or I am doing something at this time, and I am not able to monitor the child." How do we as a community? I remember when I was at Woolmer's, well, I know how to reach home, but Woolmer's had a rule that you could not be seen in your uniform
loitering on the street
after a certain time of day or evening, because if you were seen loitering, there was going to be punishment. Should we see schools doing more and more of this?
I think many schools have that. The real thing is the information that comes to you as a principal. Because I get information like that, for example, from my school. We have that kind of rule. But the truth is that there are some people who are going to get away because you don't get that information coming to you. I guess it's the same kind of thing that happens with crime all over. I mean, really not saying the children are criminals, but the point I'm making is that if you get the information, you can act on it. And when you act on it, then there is a better probability that you're going to rein in this kind of thing. So it is more about that to me than anything else. But I think that most schools have rules like that and seek to enforce them.
I hear Harris talk about what we used to do when we were in school, how we used to hang out. Obviously, things are a little different now. I think what I hear you saying is that, yes, the schools need to do something. You also mentioned other stakeholders. So the parents, a key one. We're going to get to that some more. But you're also talking about society. And I don't know if that village prism and paradigm that once obtained, I don't want to say if it's relevant today, because it's relevant every day, but not many people are willing to try and talk to a child these days because you don't really know what's going to happen. Sir Linvan, is it practical for us to expect that will happen in present day Jamaica?
I think many of us say that. The truth is that there are some parents who are going to hit out at you because I think their view of the freedom their child should have, I think, really was on to just a kind of looseness about how they grow their children. But there are many parents who really want that. And when they get the information, they do something about it. The real challenge is that we allow the few who might be a little aggressive to make us feel fearful of not doing it. But I see the indignation out there in cyberspace on social media, where whenever these things happen, people have a problem. I'll give one example. this thing that happened, I'm very much involved with sports. And this thing that happened with the students at Dainhill and the referee.
Yeah.
When I read the blogs on it, the majority of people are saying that these people just ought to be seriously dealt with because these things ought not to be happening. So I get the sense that people understand what it is that is acceptable behavior and what is not acceptable behavior. I think what I think what really is happening is that many people have no time. You are in the public space, you're just going about your business, you're running to catch a bus, you're running to deal with a thing. You might figure that you might have to go to court if it is that you see something and you have to talk. So I just think we don't have the energy, the time to follow up, given the many things they say, work, I'm alone. So I'm going to concentrate on somebody else's child when I really have mine, I have nobody else to help me. These are some of the things and that is one of the reasons I think we have to get a kind of consensus around how we deal with it. How do we bond? How do we come together to ensure that we can work with these teachers, principals, parents, the community, the police,
I love this thing. Is one of the issues that that children are having children? And that our parents are young?
But I see, let me tell you something. I see all manner of professionals struggling to raise their children. It's not just about children having children. That may be a part of it too. But I also feel that we are not factoring, like for example in Western Jamaica, I think many parents, because of their work hours, really can't come in. There's one parent I had to deal with who said, "Sir, I'm studying, I'm alone. I'm trying with this young man, I send him to classes, but she doesn't see him for maybe more than an hour in the morning when he's leaving."
Yeah.
That's no healthy way for a child to grow.
Yeah.
But is that her economic circumstances in her mind is something that is causing her not to be able to do this. We have got to balance it a little bit in my mind.
You raise an issue, sister, but I won't bring that up right now. That's for another time. But one of the things I'm thinking, there's a Caribbean country, I won't say which, that has an institution for children that are problematic. It is an educational institution, but it has a more rigid kind of discipline. And they, I think, live on the compound, almost like the army runs it. Is there now a time where we have to sit down now and think about how are we going to address students in our schools that are displaying a lot more aggression, a lot more indiscipline, that we literally may have to pull those students, not send them home, but find a way or a place that they can go and be rehabilitated while learning and put them back into the system?
I know schools that do that kind of thing with some of them on Saturdays. I mean, I have colleagues who have spoken to me when they talk. I think those are some of the things that are done. That is one thing that many principals think of and many people figure ought to be the case. But I mean, to me, the central thing is that you really want them in a space that can get them to understand that, look here, in a space where you're sharing with individuals, these behaviors are not acceptable. That aggression as a default response to everything is something that's going to endanger everybody else. And some kind of orientation into understanding their responsibility to rein themselves in and to conform to standards of behaviors that are going to be acceptable to others, and that's going to make them, people whose presence, is palatable, is something that has to be. So maybe institutions like that can do it, but I also think that camps can do that. The important thing really, is the resources, because the truth is that I think many of our social workers, all of those institutions we have to deal with children, they know what to do. What really is happening is that they don't have the resources for the kind of follow-up that is necessary to help these children. You check any school now, they are referred by counselors, they are referred by deans of discipline. Social workers take them. But what is happening when you check it out, they might go to one session. After that, they don't go to that session and there's no follow-up. The parent really doesn't follow it up in the way he or she ought to. The organization is so swamped that it doesn't have the time to really follow the many cases it has. There's just a need for more of that kind of thing. And I think we have a tendency or an approach sometimes to these things that, boy, they're rough. But the truth is that if you get to the source of the problem and address the source, I mean, one of the things Yeah, one of the things I talk about, Simone, is adverse childhood experiences.
Yes.
What is happening? We are not
Cases.
sufficiently au fait with the effects of this on children. You know, parents smoking, parents drinking, parents involved in aggression, growing up in violence. Oh, this affects the children and the children are growing up. It affects their brains, you know.
Yeah.
It changes how the synapses work in the brain based on the readings that I have. So some of these behaviors that we think are just easily changed by punishment really be changed by therapy over time.
Yes, and punishment could also make it worse.
Yeah.
So when I look at your comments now to say it's a straight parenting problem, once the children are under proper scrutiny and there's sufficient supervision of their time after school by their parents, this doesn't happen. You say if the students were coming from homes that are responsible enough and their movements are monitored after school. I feel like within the broader context of the discussion that we've had, I think what we also need to acknowledge is that parents need support and upskilling. I always talk about KSACAR and the National Parenting Support Commission and the work they're doing. It's so important because some of the parents do not know that they don't know, or they know they don't know, but they don't know how to curb their kids' behavior.
The truth is that many of us as educators are those that have to deal with children. In many instances, assume this. Even me, sometimes I assume that the parents know because you think that because it's parents. There are assumptions in many instances because that what you're saying is quite right. The parents need help. Many teachers need help in understanding many of these things are happening with these children. Because if you deal with it without understanding, you might make the matter worse.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have to go, sir. I'll just add by saying we also need to have more activities in communities. So when the children go home, there is something that they can participate in that positively impacts their development. Good morning, local government.
No problem. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sir Linburn. Jamaica Association of Principals of Secondary Schools President Linburn Wright. If I hear you talk about that one more time.
Yeah, but no, though.
Jeez, social and behavior.
The children want something to do. Them want something to do. School done.
For idle hands.
Them want something to do. Make them go into the community and teach them something. Give them. Coming up next, we're going to hear all the details about National Debaters Week.